Stu Ungar is remembered as poker's ultimate tragic hero, a prodigy whose life swung between unbelievable highs and devastating lows. Widely regarded as perhaps the greatest card player of all time, Ungar dominated both gin rummy and poker in his day. He is one of only 2 players to ever win the World Series of Poker main event 3 times. Yet for all his genius at the table, Stu Ungar's personal demons would lead to his downfall. This is the dramatic story of Stu Ungar, a tale of unparalleled talent, triumphant victories, and heartbreaking self-destruction. Stu Ungar's story begins on Manhattan's Lower East Side. Born in 1953, Stu was exposed to gambling from a young age. His father was a bookmaker who ran a bar that doubled as an underground card room. Tragically, his father died of a heart attack when Stu was only 14, and not long after, his mother suffered a debilitating stroke. In a broken home, young Stu turned to the thing he knew best: cards. By his teens, he was hustling in New York's backroom gin rummy games, quickly earning a reputation as a child prodigy. Stu's talent was otherworldly. He won a local gin tournament at age 10, and by the 1970s, he was considered the best gin rummy player in New York City. His mind for cards was unmatched, possessing an incredible memory and lightning-fast calculation ability. One legendary match illustrated his dominance. Stu faced gin champion Harry Yonky Stein in a high-stakes game and beat him 86 games to 0. Stein reportedly quit professional gin afterwards. After that, Stu Ungar was so feared that no one wanted to play him anymore. Casinos even asked him not to enter their gin tournaments because other players would refuse to compete if the kid was in the field. Ungar's competitiveness was fueled by supreme confidence. He would openly critique opponents he deemed inferior. To keep the gin games going, Stu started giving opponents handicaps, letting them see the last card in the deck or offering rebates on losses, anything to lure people into playing him. But by the late 70s, Stu had simply run out of worthy competition in gin rummy. At this point, Stu Ungar had conquered the world of gin before he was even old enough to vote. By his early 20s, he was a marked man, the prodigy whom every gambler knew could not be beaten at his own game. And so, with opponents scarce and action drying up, Stu turned his attention to a new challenge that would make him a legend: poker. Stu arrived in Las Vegas in 1977, a hot-headed 5'4" New Yorker with a chip on his shoulder. Upon hitting Vegas, he promptly crushed every gin game in town, even beating well-known gambler Billy Baxter out of $40,000 in their first encounter. Baxter had to put a Coca-Cola crate on Stu's chair because the 24-year-old looked like a little kid and could barely reach the table. The nickname The Kid stuck with Ungar because of his youthful face and small stature. With gin rummy action scarce, Stu finally took up poker, albeit reluctantly. He later admitted he always thought of himself as an even better gin player than poker player, once declaring he could, quote, not see how anyone could ever play gin better than me. Still, it wouldn't take long for Stu Ungar to take the poker world by storm. In 1980, a 26-year-old Stu Ungar entered the World Series of Poker main event seeking a new arena for high-stakes action. Incredibly, it was the second Texas Hold'em tournament he had ever played. Legend has it that Stu skimmed through a poker strategy book the night before, then proceeded to beat the book's author, Doyle Brunson, at the final table. The upstart Ungar outlasted a field of 73 players and defeated Brunson heads up to win the 1980 WSOP main event, earning $365,000 and instant fame. Ungar's victory sent shockwaves through the poker community, and he wasn't done. In 1981, Stu returned to defend his title.
And the leader right now, the youngest player in the tournament, the defending champion, defending world champ, Stu Ungar, who now lives in Las Vegas out of New York City. You're in the lead. Can you hold it?
I feel like I got a good chance to win it. These are all tough players, but I feel I'm a favorite right now to win it.
All right, there they are, the final 4, and here we go for the world title. Good luck, gentlemen.
Stu stormed through the field and won the WSOP main event for the second year in a row. And if you want to storm through some easy poker fields, check out my pinned comment and use code Doug. Ungar's style was aggressive, fearless, and razor sharp. He could read opponents with uncanny accuracy, sometimes even announcing their exact cards. Poker veteran Mike Sexton recalled that Stewie's chips were constantly in motion. One famous hand saw Ungar call an all-in bluff with just 10 high and be correct. I'm sure that would go over well today.
I call.
She calls? Does she have Jack 4?
Jackpot?
What?
Beyond the main event, Ungar collected 5 WSOP bracelets and dominated major events. He was allegedly so skilled at blackjack that Vegas casinos banned him entirely. The stories about him are legendary. In one proposition bet, he's said to have successfully counted down a 6-deck shoe and named the final 3 cards, winning $100,000. By the mid-80s, Stu Ungar seemed unstoppable. But away from the tables, a very different story was unfolding. After his mother's death in 1979, Stu began using cocaine, initially to stay awake during long card sessions, but soon it became a destructive addiction. Years of abuse took a heavy toll, collapsing his nasal septum and leaving him frail. His marriage fell apart, and his stepson tragically died by suicide. Stu's addiction sometimes spilled directly into his poker career. In the 1990 WSOP Main Event, he built a huge chip lead early on in the tournament, but he was found unconscious in his hotel room from a drug overdose. He still made the final table without playing another hand, finishing 9th. Imagine final tabling a poker tournament that you aren't even playing. He also had an uncontrollable gambling habit. He'd bet huge sums on sports, horses, golf, almost anything. He went broke countless times despite winning millions. Friends tried to help him into rehab, but Stu always refused. By the mid-90s, Stu was nearly destitute and physically unrecognizable. But in the 1997 WSOP, he would have one last shot at redemption.
Shuffle up and deal.
In May 1997, players gathered at Binion's Horseshoe for the WSOP main event as usual. Unbeknownst to them, a former 2-time champion was in the building, looking for a stake. Stu Ungar, deeply in debt and likely on drugs, desperately wanted to play. But he had no $10,000 buy-in. Most people he approached were understandably reluctant. But at the very last minute, his old friend Billy Baxter decided to take one more chance on Stu. Baxter paid the $10K entry just moments before registration closed, making Ungar the very last entrant in the 1997 main event. The stage was set for an astonishing comeback. Ungar's condition at the start of the tournament was dire. He had been up for over 24 hours straight, hustling to get money, and by the middle of day 1, he was said to have been falling asleep at the table. But after getting words of encouragement from his friends, Ungar made it through the first day. And then, just like 17 years earlier, the old magic kicked in. On day 2, Stu showed up clear-eyed and intensely focused. He proceeded to put on a master class of poker, reading opponents and making plays that left onlookers in awe. At one table, he was seated with 4 former champions, including Doyle Brunson and Phil Hellmuth. Yet by the end of the day, it was Stu who had all their chips. He built a towering chip lead going into the final table, with more than double the chips of the nearest competitor. In the end, Ungar went heads up with Jean Schremp, a casino executive, for the title. Stu held a massive lead, and in just a few hands it was over. Stu Ungar had won the 1997 World Series of Poker main event, completing the most remarkable comeback in poker history. Ungar's triumphant return at the 1997 World Series of Poker main event earned him the nickname the Comeback Kid. Despite years of drug abuse leaving him frail, Stu dominated the field and captured his 3rd world championship.
I guaranteed a victory, and I proved myself worthy of it.
Stu the Kid Ungar is back, and look out next year. Congratulations.
During the winner's interview on ESPN, Stu delivered a now famous quote that in many ways sums up his life.
There's nobody that ever beat me playing cards. The only one that ever beat me was myself, my bad habits. But when I get to playing like I was on stroke this tournament, I really believe that no one can play with me on a daily basis.
It was a moment of self-awareness from a man who had just conquered the poker world once again. For the poker community, seeing Ungar back on top was like witnessing a real-life fairy tale. Many hoped it would be the rebirth of Stu Ungar, that he'd finally exorcised his demons. He took home $1 million for first place, although half was immediately given to Billy Baxter, his backer. Stu now had money, fame, and the adulation of fans. It felt like a second chance at life. Sadly, the comeback would be short-lived. In the months following his 1997 triumph, Stu Ungar could not outrun the darkness that had long shadowed him. Almost as quickly as it came, the money was gone. Within a few months, Stu blew through his $500,000 share of the win. The funds vanished on drugs, sports bets, and his characteristic lavish spending. Friends tried to keep him on track. Stu did make a few attempts to get clean for his daughter's sake, but each time he relapsed after only a short period. By 1998, Stu Ungar had slipped back into the shadows of Vegas. He had no bankroll, and worse, his health was deteriorating rapidly. On November 20th, 1998, Stu Ungar checked in to the Oasis Motel, a cheap motel on the outskirts of Las Vegas. He was alone. 2 days later, on November 22nd, the maid found Stu Ungar dead on the floor. Stu was only 45 years old. The coroner's report revealed that Stu had only trace amounts of drugs in his system, not enough to have killed him outright. The official cause of death was ruled a heart failure brought on by years of cocaine. In other words, Stu's body just gave out after enduring so much damage. When news of Ungar's death broke, the poker world mourned, though few were surprised. As poker legend Doyle Brunson put it, we all felt terrible, but sadly it was no surprise to anyone. Those closest to Stu had long feared this day would come. Stu Ungar remains a legend, possibly the most naturally gifted card player of all time. His aggressive style influenced generations of players, and he was posthumously inducted into the Poker Hall of Fame. But his story is a cautionary tale. Raw talent is no match for unchecked demons. The comeback kid could outplay anyone else, but he could not conquer himself. This is a more serious video. If you liked this format, thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know you want more of these. I'll cover more stories. Thanks, guys.